Hello, 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 welcome to this another edition of Watch Me Work. So I'm currently working on the last shot of this this commercial. It's quite big, and if you followed the last one, you'll see that the bird, if I can find it there, just turn him off. The bird is kind of worked out. Now I haven't animated the bird much yet. What I've kind of done is just use this as blocking, because fiddling with this takes a bit of time, and I'd rather make sure that everything else is in place, and then if I need to adjust the trajectory of the curve, slow it down, pull it over longer period of frames, everything like that, I can do that at a later stage. So there's no point in me going in here and animating him flapping his wings and stuff, because you know, it's just going to be wasted work, really. So I'm going to turn the bird off, and I can turn the path off as well, actually. Let me just do that. In fact, I'm going to change the name of that bird path, and then I know that that's the bird, and I'm just going to hide it. So what I'm going to concern myself with today, among other things, is the little boy. Now, if I just turn it off, every time it does this, it's very annoying. There we go. Right, now, what I want for this character, let me just turn his hands to sort of quick preview mode, is I'm going to have him jump in from out of shot and then just sort of stay there looking wide-eyed. I don't want, because there are so many characters in this, I don't think it's beneficial to the shot if they move around too much. They'll have their little moment of coming into the shot and then pretty much stay put. Fidget a little bit, but I'm not going to wave their arms or anything like that, because it just is too much visual noise. There's already tons of stuff going on, you don't need more. So it's kind of like an acting thing, where in order to sort of draw attention, this is the thing that I'm wanting people to look at now, the book. Buy this book, you know, whatever I put in the middle. I might put a selection of books here, you know, adapt to the commercial. But that's the kind of thing I want to do, and therefore the characters, as I say, they don't want to move too much once they're in place, really. There's too much. So I've got this piece of animation that I've already taken from one of the previous shots. And his eyes aren't well, they're in the right place in a way, and then they're not here. So I'm going to have to alter that a bit. Also, he's jumping in way too early. He needs to jump in, you know, much later stage. So therefore, I need to have, you know, him sort of start from there. And the first character that comes in is the bird, because that's the following in from the previous shot. The birds, there are 3 birds, they float upwards, and so they're at the very least 1 or maybe even 3, I'm not quite sure yet, are going to come up into this shot to do their thing. So that's the first thing that has to happen, the birds, then the boy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the keys that I already have for the boy, and I'm going to move them over to 10 like that, and then he pops into existence there. Now what I might do as well is copy that, paste it there, and then we've got some, you know, he exists on those frames as well, otherwise the exposure of his bits and pieces just isn't there. I'm just going to turn that hand as well so that we can see the hands. They don't look as nice, but I can actually see them. Right, okay, so I don't quite know when to, if I move that over, that should make him disappear. Yeah, so I want at least a couple of frames of him not being there, and then when he comes in, I want him to, now that's not a circle. I'm being very nerdy here now. I'm just going to go in here to the controller for him, and I'm just going to change it to preserve proportions, because I don't like squashy buttons. Me being annoyed. Right, okay. And annoying, probably. Right, okay. Now I'm just going to pull him over to that. Now I could draw a little path, but it's such a quick movement I can't be bothered, quite honestly. So that's the first position. That's the second. I need something coming. Now it's a bit weird when you're animating characters from nothing, because sometimes it helps to actually give a few more frames to sort of register their existence before you then do the actual piece of animation. It's a funny kind of weird thing. It's a bit like sometimes with speech, you've got to overemphasize sounds in order to make them look right. And there's a thing that I've got with the bird when it comes in here. It flashes in a bit too quick, so I might have to sort of artificially come up with a few more frames early for this to work and make it look right, because it looks a little bit quick and I want some sense of depth in here. Anyway, a similar sort of thing here where I've got to have a few frames here to establish that he exists before he actually comes to do, you know, the proper speed. And in fact, what I might do actually is animate this in reverse, because it might be easier. Let's get rid of that, because I want him to be there. So if I just get hold of him and move him to the correct place here. Animating in reverse is always a little bit of a mind bend. And also, of course, he's stretchy. Now, how to do that? Oh, okay. So what I might do to maintain that stretchiness is actually take that frame, do that, get rid of that, copy that and paste that back, and then I've still got that cartoony stretchiness with minimal effort, because I didn't have to sort of get that back into the pose. Okay. Animating in reverse is so weird. Another one, so copy, paste. I'll do a few frames and see where I go. I mean, it would have been beneficial to actually do a path, and it's me just getting on with it, but actually I might do that. We'll see how it goes. If it looks crap, I will do a path. There you go. In fact, well, let's just see. Oh, actually, that's quite nice. There you go. Yeah, it's all right. It was so quick, I thought it might not work, but actually, nah, it's all right, isn't it? It's me being sort of, oh yeah, just get on with it, but actually, sometimes you do need to not listen to your id, because your id's sometimes a bit stupid. There we go. So this is the shot. There we are. So it's come in, bounce. There we are. Boing. And now I think it's a little bit dull, his bounce up. What I might do, and this is me being very silly because I shouldn't be doing variations. What I'll do is I'll save it, but I kind of want to keep that curve going of his head, so it's more like that. Let's see. Move his head down a bit. Move that back a little bit. Make it rest a little bit. Move that up a little bit. Come on, move it up a bit. Oh, I can't. That's as high as it goes. Okay, so in which case, I'm going to move it down there. Move it down there. Move it down there. And then move it down there. So that I've got a bit of... get another position there. Do it with the arrow keys. Hopefully, yeah, it's just little subtle movements. Let's see what that looks like. Boing. It's just a little bit nicer. And then I think when his blink happens, which would be here, I'm just going to shift that over because it happens a bit too early. Move that back. Sorry I'm going quiet, I'm just sort of concentrating on the work here. Now, the thing I don't like when he rests there is his hands, if you notice, are a bit stick-like. You notice that when you're looking at newbies to animation, is that often their walks don't look right. Not because their legs are in the wrong place, but the arms aren't doing anything and the hands aren't doing anything. I'm just going to have a swig of water. It's a bit dry today. Sorry about this. If you're wondering what that clacking sound is, that's my water bottle. Anyway, yeah, it tends to be the finishing of limbs that gives away a bad piece of animation. So what I'm going to do is just delicately try to get something in there contrary to the rest of the movement, so there is some sense of them having some autonomy. There we go, let's have a look at that. No, not quite yet. It's when, right, boom, 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 up. That needs to happen more out like that, and around like that. Out like that. Ignore the other hand. Right, let's try that. Nope. So there's now a bounce happening, which is not very nice. So boom, boom, boom. What I'll do is raise that up a little bit. And then I think down. And keep it like that. Just a little bit of refinement. It's this stuff that really sells a shot. Sorry, a piece of movement rather. Right, get rid of. And this is why hotkeys are so important when you're moving around, because I'm essentially clacking away on the keyboard to sort of get the refinement going. Right, there's something ugly about that I still don't like. It's like it's sort of retreating into the hand, into the sleeve, so. I'm going to pull that down, do that more, do that more. You'll find yourself contradicting choices you've made. Now, I don't like that leap, so I'm just going to find the peg that's responsible for the movement by just, it would be hard to know with all of this. Ooh, dear, my hand. I need to get some other sort of cushioning thing for my hand on the other side of this desk. Right, so is it this? Let's find out. If I get rid of it. Looks like it, yeah. There we go. Still looks a little bit ugly. It's not curved enough, the movement. I mean, there are plenty of shows that get away with things that are worse than this, and it's an overindulgence. You're probably not going to notice it. There's going to be so much movement that I don't think so. However, I can't help myself. That's better. Now what I'm doing is, you won't be able to see this, I'm actually covering his other hand up with my hand, my real hand, so I can just see the movement of one part of it and the other hand isn't getting in the way and distracting me, because the other hand's probably wrong. I think that's nice. So now I'm going to do the other hand, which probably won't be as much work. And I think I'm right, although I would like that to do something a little bit different here. There's something in animation called follow through, which is subtle, but you notice it if it isn't there. And a lot of a lot of 2D animation doesn't, like this, doesn't tend to have it very often because of the methods that used in its creation. Something which stop motion animators tend to have more of because of the way they animate the thing in the first place. If you don't know what follow through actually is, it's when one piece of movement takes a little bit longer than another piece of movement or something. So it'll be, you know, an arm or hairs on a head or something like that. I think that's follow through anyway. Maybe, is it that? I forget all these flipping terms, honestly. I mean, I just do them instinctively. There's so many of them and people contradict what's necessary and what isn't. I mean, it's ridiculous. Now you notice how the hand looks quite stiff if you actually see it, but if you don't see it, it's a lot nicer because of course it's not relevant. And that's the thing, you know, it's very important to get these things right. Now it still looks a little bit stick-like. That's I still think there we go, let's try that. It still looks a bit sort of like, and then of course it's really ugly there. I'm going to just do that. That's better. It doesn't look as sort of paper-like. Having said that, I feel there are too many frames that are quite close to each other there. That probably is better. That's nicer. There we go. It stops things looking quite so papery. I mean, were I to have more time and everything, these flipping hairs, I mean, I suppose I can do a bit of that now. Is it follow through? Honestly, I wish I knew these terms more, but I mean, they're only made up things by, albeit very clever people, to explain a particular phenomenon. You know, if you call it something else, but it's exactly the same thing, then call it whatever you like. The point is, you have something that reacts to the movement in a sort of secondary kind of way. So, you know, hair isn't driving a movement, but it's moving because of the thing that it's attached to. That's the point. See, the moment you start getting into this too much, see, this is not a very good design of character. I've said this before. And the minute you start getting into that, you know, but I'm trying more to sort of not chicken out with doing things like follow through, because I think for a large amount of stuff in my career I've chickened out of doing it because it's a lot of work. I don't know, I saw an episode of Bob the Builder that I worked on years and years ago, and I've kept chastising myself for not animating certain things in a certain way, and now I'm sort of, it's a professional revenge on my own self, saying I can't do that. Now the problem is they do go down, but now they sort of stop dead. And I'm a bit concerned that I'm animating myself into a bit of a corner here, just because the puppet isn't really capable of very good things. There's a sort of strange little bump that his head does as well now. Or does it? Oh no, it's not bad actually. I was looking at something wrong. Yeah, I think just that little bit of extra help. I might animate the second fin a bit more on the way up. So that goes there, there. And just for... I can't remember what the term is when you do offset, is it? I can't remember. Anyway, the fact is that you don't have everything stop at once because that makes animation look dead. So you try to keep some elements of the motion going even though you're pretty much coming to a halt. So and it's very difficult sometimes to know when to stop. That's the problem. I was watching The Illusionist very recently, a couple of days ago, which is the... oh God, I can never remember his... I know his name visibly, but I can't remember how to say it. Anyway, he's a French animator. He did Triplets of Belleville, or Belleville Rendezvous, as it was called in Europe. And it's based on a Jacques Tati concept. Jacques Tati was a largely silent film comedian in France that made some, not many films. It was, it's quite a small amount. He made The Vacations of Mr. Hulot, I think, and Mon Oncle. And I've seen both of them. Mon Oncle I really love. It's a really funny little subtle film, and it's very much based on silent comedy, so the characters don't really talk much. They say hello, it's that kind of thing, but it's got some very surreal scenes in it, and it's based, Mon Oncle anyway, is based on sort of modernity in 1950s France, I think, and the absurdities of it all, and Mr. Hulot, Monsieur Hulot, who's played by Jacques Tati, is somebody out of step with whatever the film tends to be, really. And in this case, it's a bit more of a somber film because he's in The Illusionist. It's about a performer that is sort of giving up on performing, really, because it's too much. It's too much work, and it's not really the dream that it's purporting to be, and he's sort of starting to realise it and not like it. Anyway, it's quite a dour film for an animated production. The point I was trying to make is interesting how some animators were able to make the characters stop, and some weren't able to make the characters stop very easily. So there was times when the characters had to rest, and they still would have to sketch in a few more frames, perhaps a few too many frames. If you look at, this isn't a criticism because the film is good. I wouldn't say it was my favourite film ever, but you do find yourself wanting to watch it every now and again, which is, good. And it's heralded by a lot of critics as this marvellous thing. It does have people that don't like it, and it's quite a worthy film. It's one of those, but I don't mind it. It's different. It's interesting. And one of the criticisms that people had about it, which I agree with, is that it's sort of held back in a way by trying to be a bit too close to a Jacques Tati original, and that one of the strengths of the film, rather like Triplets of Belleville and The Old Lady and the Pigeons, which are both films made by this man, I can't remember his name, and I told you I'm terrible with names. Anyway, is that he's very, very good at caricature work, and sometimes the bits in the film that for me don't work very well is when it's not very caricatured. The little girl, well, I say it's not a little girl, it's a young lady character that follows him around, is a little too realistic in a way for me. So as a consequence, whereas other characters can be really bizarre and have long necks and sort of over long noses and things like this, she is a bit stifled with her performances, and as a consequence, It's just a bit of a weird one, really. So I'm getting confused. Where do I go to move his head? Oh, it's there. It's been a while since I've used this character. There. It's about right, isn't it? Anyway, so I just checking the animation here, so excuse me if I'm quiet. Let me just see what it's like with that. I think that's quite nice, yeah. And I'll just change his pupils to be in a different place. Anyway, yeah, it's interesting how you could see how different animators tackled similar things. I mean, the quality of his work his films are exceptionally high. I mean, I don't think I can think of any other 2D animations that are quite like that stuff. It's not Disney. I mean, it's a different style to Disney. It's more. I wouldn't even say it was more subtle, because that does a disservice to Disney. It's gentler, I suppose. Disney stuff is loud and proud, generally speaking, and that's, you know, that's not a criticism. That's its style. It's a great thing. I love Disney films. There's nothing wrong with them at all. I wouldn't want them to change. There is room for other things, and this is definitely a subtler flavour, shall we say. One of the things that I was surprised by as well is that very early on in the film, there's the magician, the illusionist, showing his sort of abilities off. And I thought it moved a bit too much, or rather it moves, there weren't enough pauses, which happen later on in the film, I think. So I was a bit surprised at how sort of quickly it was trying to get on with things, which I didn't think really fitted with the film. Anyway, whatever. It's a good film. I'd encourage you to watch it, but it is a bit slow. And it's not a film that you can easily watch passively. You do have to sort of pay attention to what's going on, otherwise you miss kind of what's going on and the plot, really, because it's very subtle. There's a lot of stuff that happens in it that's, you know, how did they get there? What? Well, if you'd paid attention, you would have known, you know. It's like watching it this time round. I think, oh yeah, I wondered how he got to Scotland from Paris. Now I know how that happened, you know, but things like this. Which only happen if you truly watch the film. When I first saw it, I did not see it at the cinema. And I think the clearer visual cues that you get from Disney films weren't there. There were some very subtle moments when you think, oh yeah, that wasn't obvious the first time round. So yeah, it's... there we go, just move them back. Actually, let me just try and go back and get those pupils. So that one's fine, don't want that moved, and there we go. That's what I was looking for. And then the same, because I don't want to hand animate a pupil to be in the same place. I just get rid of the wrong ones. There we go. That's it. Yeah, there you go. I don't mind him looking slightly crazed. Right. Bing, ding. Now I do want a little bit of rest as he comes down again. So let's just go down with that. And I think this blink needs to happen just a little bit further on. It's about there, I'd say. And then unfortunately it's doing a little bit too much of that, so I'm going to get rid of these two and start again, because I think that's all right actually. As long as the blink happens a bit later, because otherwise it's yeah, that'll do. That's fine. So I've done him, I think. Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say now. There was another thing I saw on YouTube. Somebody was, I'm going to do the, what am I going to do by the way? I'll do the sailor, because he comes in there. There we go. So I'm not going to have that expression on his face, so we'll tackle that. Anyway, yeah, I saw this piece of animation, or not animation, a thing about animation on YouTube, and it was talking about the quality of adult animation versus the quality of adult animation in the East. Pretty much, it was making a case that Western animation made for adult audiences wasn't really that well put together, or it tended not to be, or it was cheaper. You know, things like Family Guy, The Simpsons, Rick and Morty, all that sort of stuff. And it was saying that they're sort of, it was a bit cruel about it. It was saying churned out, and you know, things like Castlevania and things which are also made in the West were more considered, which was true. But the thing is, I'm just trying to get that cheek back. Hang on, there we go. So all I need to do is go, no I don't, I need to go, there we go. Where is, there we go. Yeah, that'll do. He was making that kind of play, and I think it was a bit unfair, because the sort of productions, you know, Rick and Morty, Simpsons and all that, the strength has always lied mainly in the script, and the performance is very important, but I wouldn't say that they were poorly animated at all. I would say that the style admittedly is cruder, but I wouldn't say that was necessarily that they were poor animation. I think it works very well. In fact, I would say that technically the poorer quality animation that they were in the early 90s, as opposed to the more slick productions that they are now, was better, because where it really matters, the performance, that was stronger than it is now. And that comes down to just good quality directors and animators working on it. You know, you can't substitute that. You can't for technology and everything. It doesn't matter what technology you use. If you've got a good person using it, it'll often be good, and if you get a bad person with it, then it'll not be so good. It's not really about budget so much. It's more about just having good people that care and are good at what they do, you know. The other thing was, you know, you cannot have, if you look at Asian animation, and I'm talking about, you know, if you go to like Japan, the type of animation that they have there is very, it's more drama based. You know, they will have full-on dramas that happen to be animated there. And they say, oh, and they, you know, the series go on for like 20, 30 episodes or whatever, and people say, oh, isn't this marvellous? Why can't the West have that? Well, there's a big difference in the way that these shows are created. You know, there's people in Japan are bonkers when it comes to the work. It's not a healthy way to work at all. They will live at their desks all day, every day. They don't go home. You know, they live like that. It's a pretty grim existence. There was a Western guy who wanted to work over there, and I think even the Japanese were saying, you sure you want to do this? But he really, really wanted to do that kind of work. You know, it was something he absolutely felt passionately about, and he did do it, and it was great. I think there's some YouTube stuff on it about this. But it's heavy, heavy work, and, you know, he doesn't go home. I mean, it's that kind of work you can't do in the West. You know, you can't, because, I mean, presumably they're not being paid very much. So the work to pay ratio is certainly not a thing. Quality of life isn't correct either for that kind of thing. And, you know, it's a race to the bottom, that kind of thing. So it's all very well saying, oh, well, there's none of this sort of animation here. You think, I'm glad there isn't, because if it means the sort of suffering of large amounts of people just to produce vast quantity of works, well, no, that's not acceptable. You could do it. I mean, there are ways round it where you have large teams of people and you put it together and you have a decent budget. But that's the other thing. I don't think yet there's been a clear audience for high quality adult themed dramas in animation much. Nothing has broken through yet to show that kind of thing. There have been little bits and pieces, but still in Britain and certainly America, animation is regarded as a comic medium first. There's a discrepancy here. Americans do see comic books as an adult theme, and there's much more widespread interest in comic books than there is, and they regard it very much as a piece of American literature over there, whereas over here comics are still regarded as a bit of a please, the language of Shakespeare reduced to pictures. So it's a bit like that. Nevertheless, I do think that we've yet to see that kind of breakout thing, and it unless there is one standout moment to sort of create this kind of culture, I don't think we're going to have it anytime soon. But I do think it was wrong of this person to say that animation was cheaply produced. Well, first of all, it's not. It's very expensively produced. And secondly, the quality of the animation is actually high for what it's trying to achieve. One of the videos that I made recently, and I don't know whether or not it came out in the end because I've recorded several things several times and I didn't get them out because of technical issues. But there was a shot of Marge Simpson in an episode of now what was it? She had a mental breakdown. It's a very early series. I think it's the first 3 series or something like that. She had a mental breakdown and she had to go to Rancho Relaxo. That was the place she went. And she is in a bath. I'm right drawing this bath, and she's laying in it eating some chocolate, eating an ice cream, watching Thelma and Louise, and she relaxes in the bath and her tall hair is virtually all submerged, and then she rises out of the bath gently with her hair all sort of flaxen on the bath, if you imagine the bath, and her hair sort of does this and it sort of puckers at the back. Now, yes, technically this animation isn't world class. It isn't. However, there was something very pleasing about the whole thing. It fitted, first of all, it fitted the scene perfectly. It told you the story, which is what you want. And it was good enough that Glenn Keane of Beauty and the Beast fame, and God knows how many Disney films, the highest paid animator in the world, said to the animator of that particular shot, I really like that shot. It was a pleasure to watch it. Now, if somebody of that stature can see the good in something that is supposedly cheap, then I think we need to reevaluate what we regard as good and bad animation. I mean, it's a bit hypocritical, even me talking about it here, because the whole purpose of this advert is to say, quotes, bad animation converted into good animation, which of course there's no such thing. But what I think is most important is that you do the animation that is required for the shot, show, whatever it is, and the only thing that doesn't allow you to do it is time, really, and perhaps budget, but not your own ability. So you want to try and squeeze as much juice out of whatever you're allocated as possible, so that the points that you must absolutely hit thematically and acting wise are hit, and that you're not constrained by that. So even if you've got something like Rick and Morty or The Simpsons or whatever it is, and yes, admittedly, it's not going to be able to they're not going to be able to produce animation as high quality, in inverted commas, as Aladdin or The Lion King or whatever it might be, it still is able to do the right thing for the acting and the quality of the show and that sort of stuff. That's far more important than, technically this shot. No, don't go down there. I think everybody, particularly when you're learning animation, can be a bit censorious about that sort of stuff and sort of say, oh, well, this is actually good quality animation in comparison to this. And you learn, hopefully, as you get older, that's total nonsense. It's an emotional connection, which is the most important thing. And that, if anything, is the thing The Simpsons particularly, I feel, has lost. I mean, if you look at early episodes of The Simpsons, they would change the design every episode because of the director who was on it. But who cares? We want to have a good gag with Homer's weird face, or a particular expression that Sideshow Bob would pull, or whatever. And that is far more important than quote unquote staying on model. That I just think is an overrated thing. Yes, there are certain rules that need to be obeyed, but there's still a bit of wiggle room for performance. And I think that's very important. I haven't done much animation here at all yet. I've been adjusting his head. I'll just do a bit of animation and I think I'll wrap it up. But yeah, that little thing I do. Now I think he's gonna fall from the sky. So I shall get, where is his frame? Here it is. And I'm just gonna make a full keyframe so I know that that's, let's just see what happens. So ignoring his legs. Okay, so he doesn't actually start to sort of bend until about that frame. So beyond that, we've got to do a bit of this. Move up. And I think, let's just get it up to the correct position. So up there like that. I'll be changing his legs, I think. So copy that, paste, move it up a bit more. Let's just see what that looks like. Oh yeah, that's not bad. Look. I don't like the leg positions, but I like that. Now he may look as if he's too far off, but that's because there's so much else going on here. And I can always shift it over later, but it's not a big problem. So what I need to do now is just alter his legs a little bit so they're more appropriate for this shot. So I'm just gonna do a bit of that and a bit of that. So yeah, I think the older I'm getting, the more I'm seeing quality of animation, so to speak, as something far more to do with the quality of the feeling it gives you, rather than, oh, you know, frame 25, you know. I mean, to be fair, I never really thought that far. I was never that, you know, obsessed with you know, finite detail. I think the only issue I had rather with my earlier work was that I didn't push the stylization of movement enough. I mean, look at some of that Bob the Builder stuff that I did and I just think, why didn't I push this and, you know, allow a bit more cartoon in it? I was obsessed with realism, even with a show like that. It was absurd. So I am a bit annoyed with my younger self for not trusting to be able to animate that stuff a little bit more, to relax, basically. I mean, funnily enough, I did it all right for Pingu. I was very pleased with the way that Pingu moved, because it was so different as a show. I sort of let my hair down on purpose, and forced myself to do something very stylized with that. Whereas Bob, I didn't do that. I sort of, no, I need to make it more this, that, and the other, which is nonsense. I should have, you know, listened to. Well, just been more sensible, really, I think. I'm just going to flay that out a little bit. I think that's better. Let me just see. Yeah. And I'll make some little adjustments to his coming up as well, I think. Because they are a little bit fast. I just want like one extra frame in there, I think, or one frame down or something, I don't know. Let's just see. Colourful Sailor, so he's down for that. Do that, and then up again. I think just do that. And then just slow up the coming up part. Let's just see, here we go. Now I need to do this wiggle a few more times. And I think because of the nature of everything going on around it, I'm going to slow it down so it's on 2s. Okay. Now, because it's a slightly different pace, I'm going to actually have the arms crunched down into this. So I'm going to have the arms out, I think, for these frames, because I just think it'll fit the movement better. So I'm just moving them out. Now I might have to turn the book off because I can't see what I'm doing here now. And just so that I'm in the right place. So there's much more of a sort of and crunch. Let's just see. So again, when it gets to the out bit, I'm just going to give it a bit more breathing room, and out. And therefore I need a bit more relaxing there as well. And then gets them in. I might have to put a few more frames for this to work. I think the other thing that a lot of people make the mistake of when they're starting out is just over animating everything because they want to show off and they want to know that they can do it. I mean, I can't remember what actor. Oh, that's right, it was Julie Walters. She was working with Michael Caine. She learnt this from Michael Caine, who has done quite a lot of acting workshops in the past. And she said it's very tempting as an actor to give your all in the rehearsal, just to sort of figure out if you can do it at all, really. And the problem with that is that when you come to actually do the final performance, it can be a bit dead because you've already sort of, you know, you've done your bit already. So if you're going over it again, this is more applicable to film work than it is for theatre, because for theatre you have to sort of keep it fresh by, you know, reinventing it quite often on the hoof, really. Just checking what I'm doing now. I think I need to get more energy into that shumph. Let me just do that. It's a different movement. Alright, okay, so that's wrong there. So I'm just going to move that. Alright, okay. Yeah, it's tempting to do all the movement all the acting all at once just to prove to yourself that you can do it, part of the things. But then, of course, the movement, you know, the acting is wrong when you're finally coming to it. And I would say that the same thing applies with what's going on here? Get rid of that. Let's just move that over the way. It's strange sometimes retroactively animating because you're sort of getting it wrong. Anyway, yeah, because you're trying to do the right thing from the start rather than, you know, waiting until you're ready to do it. So anyway, what the point I'm trying to make is the similarity between this and animation, I would say, is blocking and live action reference and that kind of thing. I think to rely too much on the animatic and to not have a sense of what is going to happen, it kind of can ruin a piece of animation a bit. I think you do need to still keep some degree of ad-libbing going, otherwise it just dies a bit. And I do think less so. I mean, you've got to hone performances a bit more for feature films and things like that, just because the sheer finite quality of work, it is tricky to keep that going. But I would say for TV shows, particularly like Family Guy and Simpsons and things like that, where you can afford spontaneity because of the nature of the beast and the speed that you're having to go at, these are the little gems that can really make a show pop. And I think it's a shame. Oh sugar, I keep pressing the wrong buttons, sorry. I think it's a shame that we've gone so hard with animatics. This is what we've blocked out. We're doing it this way, not this way. It's this kind of thing. And I just think, you know, that's happening a bit too often. And we need to trust in the people we hire. And unfortunately, the more, and I use this quote in a sarcastic way, professional we're becoming, the less good the stuff is becoming. Because any kind of riffing of the performance just isn't able to happen. There's a comedy duo in Britain called French and Saunders. And what they'll do for their writing is they will write roughly what's happening, but they will keep it deliberately quite loose, because that's where the joy of performance comes in. You can't write a performance. You've got to sort of keep that loose. And that's where the joy of the shot and the production is, you know? And I think that's the thing that a lot of animation is starting to lose, is that sense of spontaneous zhuzhiness. It just isn't there. And a lot of people are saying, well, we need the animatic to figure this out and figure that out. Yeah, all right, fine. You're killing it, though. You are destroying your own production. You do realise that, don't you? It's not a good thing to plan to that degree. It isn't. And it's totally unnecessary. There are times, I mean, I was watching back something to do with a popular TV show and the behind the scenes stuff of it, and I was just looking and thinking, why on earth are they doing this? It's just over the top level of, and I knew it was, a lot of it was unhelpful stuff that was happening in post-production. You know, they didn't seem to at any point actually ask the people who were going to be doing the post-production stuff what they wanted. So they did a lot of this very unnecessary, very expensive work, and you think, what is this for? It's not going to help anybody do anything. And I do think that, you know, the bigger the production is, the more dangerous that side of things becomes. You have producing this and producing that, but they don't actually have a proper dialogue with the people who are actually going to do the work itself. And I think that's changed in recent memory. Now I'm going to make sure that it doesn't completely stop. And essentially it carries that energy on. There we go. Ding. Yeah, that's nice. It's just one frame and that's all it took, and it just gave it that extra little bit of energy. And then I'm gonna do that. Actually, I don't want to do that. I just want these two frames. Copy that in reverse. Paste it in reverse, rather. Do another pose. Excuse me. There we go. I mean, it kind of animates itself, but there's a few little things you have to do. Right, and then back. No, these ones. So Copy, paste in reverse. Oh, hang on, something odd has happened there. Too much of a gap. That one's missing. Move those ones. Paste that one. No. What am I doing? Hang on. Copy. Paste. Is that right? Yeah, there you go. Oh, and there's something's missing. Oh, yeah. I need to get rid of one of those. Get rid of that one. Move them over. There we go. Must have put the wrong frame in. Copy, paste. Is that right? No. What am I doing? It's because I misaligned it. I think that's the one now. Yeah. And then I'll just do a resting frame there. There we go. Yeah. So I'm all for spontaneity, and unfortunately in America, and it's creeping over here as well, I've seen small companies start doing this, and I'm thinking, why? I just think that there's a bit too much planning, and to me it comes over as weakness. It doesn't come over as strength at all. It's not trusting your animators and not trusting the process enough. It's people nervous. That's what it is. It's nervously saying, well, we need to do this. Why do you need to know it? Think clearly why you need to do it. Do you actually need to do it? Well, we think we do. No, don't. I think that will be it for today. So I've got the boy coming in. Let's just see how that looks with the boy as well. So the boy and him, there you go. Him flexing his muscles a bit. Boink, boink. All sorts of business is going to come over the other side. I think I'll do another video showing that off. But yeah, just little showings of how it all works. And yeah, hope you enjoyed it and me waffling on about my opinionated view of the animation industry. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Bye-bye.